Hey fam, welcome to another episode of Good, Bad, and Ugly about real estate. I have a great guest for you, a new friend of mine, Mr. Jason Woodrow. Hey, let's go.
Love that, man. That's great.
How you doing, Jason?
Good, man. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. I'm glad we got a chance to do this. Like I tell you guys, Jason's a new friend of mine, so I'm not going to take any more of your time. Jason, can you go ahead and share with us your journey and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, man. Wow, it's a daunting question, but I'll do my best here, man. So like many of your audience, real estate is a huge vehicle for me achieving freedom. It's a great business when it's set up correctly. And it's also very, attainable as a low barrier to entry. And so, it attracts a lot of people as well. And so those are all great things. The problem that I had was that I didn't quite set it up correctly. We'll get into that in the episode. But, I'll tell you, man, I actually, real estate was the furthest thing from my mind when I first got into this, because I didn't have any business owners in my family. No one was an entrepreneur. And so I believed like the key to the life I wanted, the key to my purpose, whatever, is to have like a great job. That was the only option that was ever presented to me. And so I wanted an amazing job. And so the only way I knew how to get that was to get an extensive degree. So I went to get 2 bachelor's degrees. I got a master's degree, got a PhD. Literally, dude, 15 years of schooling, only to get that very first job and realize this is terrible. I don't want to work for anybody else. There goes 15 years.
The fact that you went for a doctor's is crazy. After I got my master's, I was like, I'm done. And my wife wanted me to get a doctor's. It's like, why?
See, you're smarter than me. This is perfect evidence. You are much more intelligent than I am, because I'm a glutton for punishment. And I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And part of the reason I got that degree to begin with was part of it was to see if I could do it. Another part was because I don't know what I will really want to do when I grow up. And then I kind of liked science, and I thought I was buying my time, building my credentials, so that when I graduated, I'd have my choice. I had my pick of the litter of hey, I'm going to pick an awesome job. Well, dude, literally in the first month, I recognized I don't want to work for somebody else. It's just, I was sacrificing way too much of my time, making the money that they want me to make, working with who they want me to work with. The hours were not within my control. It was just handing over too much of my life to somebody else.
Sure.
And so I'm guessing this is a fairly common path with real estate, by the way, because I see a lot of people like that. And so real estate was my way out of that. And I started off with flipping, rehabbing specifically. I had wholesale deals that didn't come my way that I couldn't take on as a rehab. Then from there, I got into some property management, had some rentals, then I got into new construction, and it's been an evolution. And now I basically just lend money. But the thing that it's wild, dude, is it's a path I never would have expected.
That's awesome. So you said you basically were a student, did it for a month, said nope, I'm done. Most people that's exactly their story, right? They work, let's say, a waiter, they working at Walmart or something like that, right? They don't have a background of real estate. And you mentioned that you got into wholesaling when you're doing your fix and flips that you didn't want to hold. How did you learn? How did you educate yourself to even have the confidence to do that first fix and flip, or even trying to figure out how to do a wholesale? Because even then, sometimes that can be a very I don't want to say daunting, but an experience if you don't do it right.
Oh, for sure. And so, because like I said, I had zero real estate experience, zero business experience. And the reason I chose real estate is because I could kind of wrap my head around it a little bit. And I'm like, okay, well, how hard can this be? You fix a house and you sell it for more than it's worth. Little did I know. So I actually, believe it or not, I had a coach. So I started going to RIAs, right? The Real Estate Investor Associations. And by the way, I'll tell you, I spent a whole lot of money on courses and all that stuff, like many people do. Some of it was great. Some of it was okay. Some of it wasn't so good. Probably spent more than I should have, but at the same time, it's like, what do you do? Like you if you get a nugget here, a nugget there, it just eventually just adds to your knowledge.
Absolutely.
And then I ran into a guy named Steve Cook, um, who I was at a property auction. It was an auction.com auction. And um, I didn't recognize Steve, but a friend of mine we're both kind of getting into real estate, recognized him because he had been, Steve, back then, this is early 2000, 2006, 7, 8. Steve was out there on the national circuit, and I had already bought some of his courses, by the way. And I went up and said hi to him. And he was super nice, super just mild, like not at all like, like some big guru's flash. He's super like humble, super just, regular guy. And I ended up joining his coaching program. So he actually coached me through, he coached me for several years actually. But he got me through that first deal. And I would have given up, like, cause I remember, it took me literally 82 offers to get my first property. And I'm like, dude, this doesn't work. And like, this is like, just doesn't. And I had all the excuses. And that, by the way, now when I hear those from people, I'm like, listen, let me tell you about you got to keep going.
Right.
But it was really through him. And he was instrumental in me getting those first few deals.
Awesome. So this is kind of a personal question for me because I'm kind of reluctant to get into space. You mentioned new construction.
Yeah.
How did you get into that space?
So it was actually Steve, because he was a rehabber, and then he got into new construction, and he's like, listen, I'll tell you, like, if I could go back, I would have done this right from the start. And I'm like, really? Like, why? He's like, well, first of all, there's way less competition. Now, what he was doing was they're called infill lots, which basically means like it's an undeveloped single lot that's in an established neighborhood. And so it's too small for these big builders to go in. It's not worth their time. And so it's really like the one-offs that he started with that allowed him to kind of get his feet wet. And he's like, dude, the rehab, he's like, my experience was like, I'd forget to and maybe your listeners have this happen as well, is like you don't realize the house has aluminum wiring, or you forgot to check for lead-based paint when it's in an older house, or like just there's more surprises, and you can't systemize it quite as much as you can a new construction. So Steve is like, I really like new construction because like, my materials list, I know unless you like start digging out a foundation and you hit ledge or something, it's pretty repeatable. It's pretty, systemized where, you know exactly what your takeoffs are going to be, your materials lists, your costs. Rehabs, you do estimates. Like it's an estimate at best. And I don't know about you, man, but like I've never hit my estimate ever, like in all my deals. It's always been off. And
Right.
so that's what kind of drew me to it. Less competition, more, repeatable.
Awesome. And so, I mean, what are some of the kind of give me maybe a 10,000-foot view of like some of the things that when you're getting into new construction? Because like for me, when I've looked at like just selling raw land for people, right? And some people like, are the entitlements there? Does it have good dirt? I didn't even know what good dirt meant.
Yeah.
Um, who did you use as a builder? Did you become your own GC and just sublet? What are some of the things that you learned as you went through that process?
Yeah. So I was not the GC for my own projects. So what I've always relied on heavily for all of my staffing or contractor needs has been referrals. Like I'll tell you, man, that for me has been the most repeatable. Now, when I first started, I found a contractor that actually used to work with the gentleman, Steve Cook, that I mentioned. And so his contract, because Steve used to be in the Baltimore market, Baltimore, Maryland, and I was south of that about 45 minutes, but the contractor covered my area too. And so he was instrumental in like, and I'll tell you this, man, like I've always had that view, and it's helped me substantially, of like, I want to be on the site as much as possible, to at least when I'm learning, because I want to be able to talk the language. I want to be able to ask intelligent questions. And this guy was very honest. And I can't say he was like the most timely, and I had to stay on him for the timing of things, but he was very honest, and I'd ask tons of questions, and he helped me. So I've always had a GC. I've never GC'd my own project. And so everything that I'm gonna share with you has been the things that I've learned from others. Now, here's the other thing that I found is really cool is typically whether it's a GC or it's an electrician or a plumber, whatever, like those guys who are good oftentimes know other good guys. And so, you know, they can like, so I'd always do this where I'd go to my electrician. I'd be like, hey, like, who do you know that's really good with HVAC? He's like, let me tell you about my buddy Tommy. And so that's how I've pieced my teams together. And then once you get a team, like there are people that fall off and teams do go. Sometimes people, I don't want to say go bad.
Sure.
But sometimes you have issues, but like, that's how I found teams. Now, specifically for what I was looking for, I was always looking for so for me, it was always the location and proximity to some of the main areas that I knew were kind of up and coming or developing, that were being built out, kind of like it. So I'd either be looking for something that if it was a tough area that was maybe economically challenged, I'd want to make sure that this was something that there was some planning with the county or the city, that this was an area they were looking to revitalize. Or I was looking like right on the edge of, I guess you could call it suburban, because at least, so I'm in North Carolina, and what we see a lot is like, dude, it's just so congested here now that like everything's like expanding outward from the main cities. And so like, I know which roads and people are developing on. And I'd also look for where the new construction is already, because that's kind of an indicator. These guys have done a lot more homework than I have. And so I'm looking at where they're developing to get those lots, because the lot is the biggest thing. As far, the other thing that I really, really enjoyed was, and well, another tip is like, you know, when I first started, I had no clue on what any of the land costs would be like. I had no clue on like, you know, grading. I always preferred I didn't always build this way, but I always preferred if it had city water, city sewer available.
Sure.
But there was, if you're going to be on the outskirts of the suburban development, the burbs, like there were a lot that I had to do. Like, you know, we had to do perk tests. We had to make sure the land was okay for that stuff. So I would not say that that wasn't a no go. It was just something you got to factor those costs in there. And then I'll tell you so for me, the land part was the most new for me, because like once the land costs were the most intimidating, because I had no clue about any of that. And then the foundation was like, oh my gosh, what is this? What are those footings, piers, and like learning that vernacular. But then from there, like the rehab process really equipped me pretty well for new construction, because like, it was actually, dude, it was so much easier. Like, yeah, right. Once you see that frame go up, you're like, oh my gosh, now I get it. And like, so, and the rest of it is, you know, it's, instead of repairing stuff, you're just putting it up new the first time, which I just really liked, because I always felt like if you had two properties next to each other and one was a rehab, but it was built in 80, and this one's a new construction and everything's brand new, I oftentimes could get a little bit more of a premium, even though they were very similar in terms of things like square footage and design. They both have 2-car garages. And so I just kind of fell to favor that. I did eventually get away from that though, and just start moving into lending though, because it's just more hands off. And I just wasn't, you know, interested in, had other responsibilities that started calling for me.
Awesome. Lost my train of thought. No.
Sorry, dude. I just went on. Like, I just gave you.
No. You're good. It's not. You know that old saying, "It's not you, it's me." Let me kind of back up. So, you know, most people starting out, they're like, "Okay, great, new construction. I don't have money. How did you figure out how to basically fund your deals?" When you didn't really have a background, you didn't have the entrepreneur family. So how did you discover how to fund these deals? Because that's what I'm trying to do now. I'm trying to be a problem solver for people, right? Bring money to them so they can help close these deals. How did you find it back then?
So my very, very first deal was actually funded through friends and family. And then I had a little bit of money on my own, and then I put some on credit cards too, which, by the way, whole story around that, but like it works until it doesn't work.
Right.
And so I had a HELOC. Actually, my very first property, the majority of that loan was from a HELOC that on my mom's house. Like, she lent it to me. And like that took a like that took a lot of trust, man. Because I
Sure.
had and I felt strong enough that I could do it, but there was still a risk there. So it was partially funded by the HELOC. My friend's dad found out what I was doing, so he gave me 20 grand for that first deal. Some of it was my money. And then there was another friend who like just put up a little bit of money, and so it was a kind of a combination. Because I had to, I always had this thing in my head is like, what do I already have available to me? Like, what are the tools that I have? Like, what can I use? And so because I didn't go to the bank for it, like I probably wouldn't have qualified anyway, and I'd always just been taught, oh, the bank's too slow, and you have a draw schedule and all this red tape. And
Right.
so I've never done a bank loan for any of my projects. It's always been personal financing. Um, what I've discovered though is like, if you do a good job, people. So for instance, my friend's dad, like the next deal, I think he gave me 35. The next deal is 50. Then, and by the way, then his sister wanted to get in on it too. And so she started lending to me. And like, so it all came down to just the reputation that really made sense. Now, I will say this, like, if you're looking to borrow money, there's two things that like, well, there's three things now because I've had deals go, I wouldn't say bad, but definitely take longer than they should have.
Sure.
So I didn't have a track record. I didn't have competency. So that's why my friends and family were the only people that would give me money. But after that, like the competency and the track record helps you a lot. And you get to the point where you can start negotiating terms. And so, for instance, like my friend's dad, I was giving him 10%, which, by the way, these were people who were not in real estate. So they don't, so 10% to them back in the day,
Oh.
dude, they're like, oh my gosh, is this legal? Like,
Yeah.
you know, and of course, and so because they're used to the stock market, so they had no frame of reference.
Right.
If you're going to borrow from people that are more sophisticated in real estate, they're probably going to charge you higher than that. But anyway, like so I did a handful of deals, and then I had more money than I knew what to do with. So I went back to everybody and said, hey, listen, guys, I'd love to still do business with you. You've been amazing, and it's been a great experience. But I can get money cheaper now, and so I have to ask you: are you willing to take 8%? And the vast majority said yes. And so you start developing that leverage.
Right.
And it has. I've never had a. And let me also say this: like I always, and I think this came across, man, is like your personal, the trust that people have in you, like your integrity and the way you just conduct yourself is a big deal. Like now, of course, if you're going to hard money, if when I lend money now to people, like the deal, of course, has to make sense. The numbers have to work. But I also want to know a lot about the character of that person, because I was the kind of person, like I am that kind of person, but when I was borrowing money, I would go get a job at Starbucks if I had to pay your money back. Like that's just because I knew like that reputation was the most valuable thing. It's not like, anything but that. And so if the deal goes sideways, I will lose money before you're going to lose money as a lender to me. And that was the approach I had. Like, and by the way, not everybody has that opinion, and I'm not here to throw stones or judge, because I've also heard other people very convincingly, and it makes sense. They're like, well, listen, if the deal goes bad, you took a risk, I took a risk, we both took a risk. That's on you. You're gonna, and I've heard that from people I respect, and so everybody's different. There's no right or wrong.
Right. So I mean, you've escalated your game since then, right? You now have Lifeonaire. Can you explain to people what that is and how they can benefit from it?
Yeah, man. So actually, the reason I got a new construction was because of Lifeonaire.
Mhm.
So Steve Cook, as I mentioned, was my coach, and he is the founder of Lifeonaire. And I didn't even know what it was back then, and I really just wanted Steve to help me with my real estate deals. And meanwhile, Steve is kind of like encouraging me to work on some things outside of business, and we can talk about what those were later. But like, I was really there just for the real estate help. And then I'd done fairly well. And then several years after being a member of Lifeonaire with Steve as my coach, he asked me to become a coach. and which was a huge honor, and I really loved it. And I started coaching. A few years after that, started speaking for Lifeonaire, and eventually he asked me to be a partner. This was late 2016, maybe. And actually, this past year, I bought the company from him as a solo
Congratulations.
entrepreneur. And so, yeah, man. So like we were partners for several years. It was great. I have a lot of experience with partnerships. Many don't go well. The one with Steve went exceptionally well, and he was a great partner. But he also had his own things he wanted to move on to. And I made Lifeonaire my biggest thing, man. Where our whole mission is to help like investors, help business owners kind of reclaim their lives without sacrificing business success. Because, as you probably know, man, like the deal, the pursuit, the money, the like all of it, it can become such a draw. It can become its own little kind of like little monster, and it
Sure.
can absolutely take over your whole life if you're not careful. And so the irony there is like, you go into business to have a better life and to have more time. And, I think a lot of business owners have these ideas and these dreams of like, the toes in the sand, sitting by the pool, kind of like living the good life and being stress free and having like all this freedom. But like oftentimes like they end up enslaved to their businesses. And so
Right.
Lifeonaire, like the name kind of implies, is like, hey, I want to help you have the business, but I also want you to make sure you have, even more important than that, the life you want to live. And so it's kind of what I'd consider to be like a life first approach to business coaching.
That's awesome. Sitting here listening to you talk, I'm like, I just recently read a book called "Buy Back Your Time,"
Dan Martell. Yeah.
Martell. Great enlightening book. And so when I was listening to you talk, I said that's exactly what I'm trying to do. Right? I'm trying to be a business owner, not be. I want to be in my business, not be a worker in my business. Right?
Yeah.
Business owner. So can you just surface level type stuff show, are you working on people's mindsets? Are you giving them like systems and processes? Is like what exact, how are you helping people that like, oh, I need to work with Jason, he got exactly what I need?
Yeah. So it's funny, man, because everybody's a little bit different. There's definitely some mindset involved in that because, and this is somewhat human nature. Is like it's very easy for us to identify with our success and
Sure.
find like our worth associated with that. And so sometimes there is some unwinding that needs to be done as far as like, if I'm, because there's a belief like if I'm not working, I'm lazy, I'm wasting my talents, I'm whatever, right? Especially with today that, we have this grind mentality where, um, I've heard it called hustle porn, where, everybody's pounding their chest, like trying to outwork each other. And listen, I that stuff is exciting. I like it. It gets me motivated too. But like the problem is I've seen very few people, like very, very few people be able to sustain that for any period of time without causing significant damage to their lives, or their health or whatever, anything other than work. And so if making money is your only priority and it's the only thing you care about, and working is truly what you want to do, then go for it. I'm cheering for you. But if there's other parts of your life that's important to you, I'd encourage you to kind of take a step back and examine that. So the first thing we normally do is help people with their vision. Like, and this is basically encapsulates like what do you really, on a very tangible, concrete, crystal clear way, like what do you want your life to look like? Like how do you want to spend your time? What do you find fulfilling? What are your hobbies? What are your relationships like? Your health? Like we look at each different component of your life. If your spiritual life is important to you, what does that look like? And really start to crystallize what that looks like, because if you want to create a business to support your ideal dream life, you have to know what that looks like. Otherwise, you're kind of shooting in the dark. And so you create your vision first. And then from there, what we typically recommend is people, like we start working people through the process of creating a business, like an actual business that does not require you to do all the work. Like, how do you actually do that? Most, for better or worse, whatever it is, like most people that would call themselves business owners really are self-employed. and they have a jerk boss, which is themselves, because they don't give, you're thinking about work at 2 a.m. and and so that's the second part of it. And then the third part is really, we encourage people to take, excess profits from the business and then roll that into cash flow producing assets. And this again is where real estate is a great vehicle for that. And so it's kind of like a process. It starts with a vision, and then eventually, if you choose to do this, that not everybody does, but like you have those assets providing cash flow for you that now kind of feed back into what you need to live off of. And so eventually, the freedom in the business becomes something that is fueled through your assets, and you're living your vision. Like essentially it's like this kind of like a pretty self-reinforcing cycle that really helps you live the life you want and have an awesome business too.
Awesome. So the name of the podcast is Good, Bad, and Ugly, and it seems like you've had a very long journey and ups and downs. Would you mind sharing with us a good story? One that like puts a smile on your face, like I'm glad I went through that, and then maybe something that's like really valuable lesson learned that somebody that's watching this may be able to learn that same lesson.
Yeah, let me tell you the bad one first, if you're okay with it.
Yeah, great.
So I mentioned that Steve was encouraging me to focus on some things outside of business when he's my coach. Well, the part I haven't mentioned yet is when I first started, and by the way, I came out of the gate swinging. I netted 6 figures my first year in real estate. I had the 3-story brick home in the gated community, all the trappings of success. And yet I was working all the time. And so I didn't just have a real estate business. I was also a broker, also had a fitness business. And by the way, this ballooned later into more, but this is where it started. And until one evening when my wife comes into the office that I was working on, and I was working on the fitness business when she did this, it was late. And I remember that was strange because she typically went to bed before me. And she was like, "Hey, can we talk?" Which, as you know, like if you ever hear those words, like it's nothing good coming. Yeah, nothing good coming. And she tells me that she wants a divorce.
Oh, wow.
And that she felt like roommates, and she had fallen out of love with me, and she was leaving. And I thought it was a bad day. I thought she was tired. Like I don't know what I thought. I thought she was like only half serious, just having a bad day. Well, she was serious. And what ended up happening, like, and that hit me harder than anything else in my life had, even to this day. And when that happened, she moved out, she left, she went home to Canada. And she and I that hit me so hard that I literally didn't want to get out of bed for about a month. And because my businesses were all reliant on me, I everything started crashing and burning. Like everything started crashing and burning. I had to sell the house. Actually moved into one of my rehabs that I was on, like on an air mattress, living in my rehab, because I couldn't afford rent. And so that was a catalyst moment of a few things for me. And by the way, like it's easy to give these like summaries, years later. This is years ago. But when you're in it, sometimes you don't see it. And like, so this is all a lot of work. It took me to figure this out. But number one is I realized I really miscalculated what was most important to me. Because I even remember telling my wife, I said, "Listen, I mean, I know I'm busy, but like this is like my first year, and I still have a job too right now. I still have a job, and I made this much money. Like you give me 2 or 3 years, like I will make so much money. Well, you can like work part-time if you want, or you can just take, you can do whatever you want." And like she didn't want any of that. She didn't want any of that. She wanted her husband.
Right.
And I totally missed that. And then the second mistake that I realized I made was that I didn't create a business. I created like a job that required me to do all the work. Yeah. And so it was through that pain. And dude, listen, I'm happily married now. I've been married now for 7 years again. This is my second marriage. I got a beautiful family now. I couldn't imagine anything else. But like that was a very, very painful lesson that if I can help somebody else avoid, listen, if there's some part of your life right now that is smoldering, it's not quite like full, 4-alarm fire yet, but you need to give it some attention. Like I'd encourage you to do that. But the other thing is I realized is like this is going to happen to me again unless I learn how to set up my business the right way.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge revelation for me in terms of like how I really decided to kind of re-examine how I was setting up the business and how to really prioritize the things that are most important and like not sacrifice all that stuff on the altar of business success. And so I'll tell you that the success story for me now is being able to, on an average week, I'm working, I don't know, 18, 20, 24 hours at the most,
Right.
No one for Lifeonaire works full time. I got to, just a couple months ago, I was in Italy. Then I was in Nashville. Then my wife and I went to Mexico, and the whole time, like, business is smooth. I don't even think I had a phone call, maybe one or two emails at the most. And it was running without me. And that was kind of the moment where I realized that was a big one for me. Another one specific moment I'll never forget is like, I got an invitation to a private VIP dinner with John Maxwell,
Okay.
leadership expert. Some people may know who he is.
Mhm.
He's always been like a huge like influence. Like I've have like 3 or 4 of his books. Just great. Seems like a great guy. And I remember telling the guy, eh, by the way, this wasn't like some 10, like I was in there for at no cost. And I said, hey, I can't because I have a family thing to do. And the family thing was that I was going to see monster trucks with my girls. And I wasn't going to cancel that for John Maxwell or anybody else. And like, that's when I realized, like, man, I'm doing okay, man. I'm prioritizing the things that to me are most important. Um, and so like, that's kind of how I run my business now and kind of schedule my life.
I love it. That's great. I'm not sure if I shared this with you earlier, but I'm a member of Pace Morby's community,
Mm,
and that's one of the things that he taught us. He has a group called Owners Club, and one of the things he taught us in there is, you know, time block things that you're doing for your business, but make sure you kind of like color code the ones that are non-negotiables, right? For like example, going to monster trucks with your daughters, going to that recital, going to that sports event with your kids,
yeah.
or your date night with your wife, those type of things. Make sure you block those times, and somebody tries to take your time is like, sorry, that time is blocked. We have to reschedule, or I just won't be able to make that event. I would honestly say that that is something that is truly a golden nugget that you just shared, and people who are watching this should pay attention to, because what's the point of having a business if the person that you're trying to do it for, like your why, decides that you're spending so much time there, not on them, that they're not there when you get to where you're trying to get to. So I really truly appreciate you sharing that, because I that hits home for me as well.
Mm.
So, if so, you've shared a lot with us during this time together. Your journey from fix and flips, new construction, now life and air. Um, what can somebody bring to you to bring value to you and your business, or maybe they just want to follow you in your journey, see where you go from where you are today? How can people get in touch with you? Or you talked about lending. If somebody wanted to maybe present you with an opportunity, how could they do that?
Yeah, man. The thing that I would love, and um, this is maybe a little bit selfish, but the only way I'm able to live my vision is truly if I'm helping other people. And so the more people that I expose to life and air, like the happier I am, the more fulfilled I am, the more I feel like I'm making a dent. And I honestly, I think that's all of our purpose, really. It just shows up in different ways.
Sure.
And so I would love if people are interested in heading over to lifeinair.com. We have a bunch of free things that hopefully are valuable for you. We have a blueprint that's available for free on some of the specific processes we help people with in terms of organizing their business to get them out of the weeds. We have some vision stuff there. If this is a new process for you, if you want to go buy the Life and Air book on Amazon, that's by Steve, my former business partner, the founder of Life and Air. It's an amazing book. Go buy that. And I would love for people to kind of like reach out to me and let me know about their journey. let me know about how things are going for them, and if there's any other way I can help, it'd be amazing.
Would that be through Facebook, Instagram, or is that just sending you an email? How would they
Yep,
do?
I'm on all socials like YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram.
All right. And for the audience, I'll have all those links down in the description. So don't worry about them. Search it. I'll make life easy for you, right? And as Jason's trying to do for you with Lifeonaire, to help you figure out your whys, your vision, and kind of turn you in the right direction and send you down the right path so that you can achieve what you're trying to get to. Jason, I appreciate you taking this time, sharing all this nuggets, sharing your life with us. Uh, in some cases, almost being a little bit vulnerable. I appreciate you being like that with us. And for the audience, I hope you got as much of this as I did. I hope that you are listening to these people that I bring on here because this is all for you. Jason took his time to share with you what he's done, the resources that he can provide to you so that you can be successful in your business. And until the next one, thanks, Jason. We'll see you next time. And bye, audience.